What's up, bangers? Welcome back to the Banger Hangar for the brand new version of your favorite show from BangerTV. This is Lock Horns Redux, not live, but in some comfy chairs, sitting down and discussing, debating, and locking horns around all things metal. Today, it's a big topic. One part celebration, one part mourning. We're here to talk about the end of one of metal's all-time greatest bands. And that band, of course, is Slayer.
Fucking Slayer!
Fucking Slayer! Fucking Slayer!
Fucking Slayer!
Fucking Slayer!
Fucking Slayer!
Fucking Slayer!
Mixed feelings going around, I think, in the metal community right now about the end of this mighty band. And we're going to devote today's episode to talking about all things Slayer, what this band means to all of us, their legacy, etc., etc. And to help me with this, to my right is Mr. Ted Aguilar from Death Angel. Good to see you, buddy.
Likewise.
Thanks for being here with us.
Thanks for having me.
We reminisce briefly. We've only bumped into each other once at Heavy MTL.
Exactly.
It's going back a few years, so finally we get a chance to actually sit down and talk. And to my left is Chris Soutsos from JHOFF Films.
Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome to Lock Horns, Chris. Thanks for doing this with us. Ted, before we get into all things Slayer, how are things in the Death Angel camp?
Things are going really well. You know, we released our latest record, Humanicide, May 31st, and we've just been busy touring. You know, did a couple of European runs. We did a one-off in Eindhoven Festival. We filled in. Saxon canceled due to Biff.
Yeah.
You know, I guess he went through some surgery.
Yep.
And I heard he's doing well. And the Mega Cruise.
Right.
Now we're doing our North American Humanicide run.
Awesome.
Headlining run. So everything's going good. And, you know, we got the news a couple days ago. We got nominated for a Grammy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Hello.
Thank you. Yeah, so we're all excited about that. Things are going well for us right now.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You guys have just been like on a steady tear for, what is it now? 15 plus years.
Yeah.
Sort of post reassembly of Death Angel.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. It's been a tough road, but it's been good.
Yeah,
You
we'll
know?
get into that. I wanna talk to you more about that. Chris, what's going on in your world right now?
Oddly enough, we were actually supposed to be on the road with Slayer for their farewell tour, filming a documentary called The Final Scream, and unfortunately we weren't able to get our visas on time to join them on the road, but we've been grinding away on YouTube, filming a lot of comedy content, try to promote some of the local metal bands in the scene, and obviously collab with some of our favorite artists in the area.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. This is the thing you've got going on with your partner there at JHOFF. What is it? What is it you guys wanna be, or what are you doing there?
So it never really started as a concrete what we wanted to do. It was just we both had a mutual interest in comedy. We were both huge fans of the Trailer Park Boys, and we like mockumentary style documentaries. So it was a matter of we just found that we got along so well together, and we just started making skits for fun. And in the past year, we broke 100,000 subscribers, and now we're narrowing down onto 150,000 subscribers. So things keep on growing, and there's definitely a potential for the channel to grow, and hopefully, you know, work up to something as awesome as this.
Well, good job, man. It's
Thank you.
It's all about hitting singles, you know. Like I think that it's just a slow grow. I mean, even for us, we've been doing this for a long time, but building the YouTube thing is a hustle.
Absolutely.
So,
I just came off tour with Warbringer as well for a 6-day Canadian leg in support of their new album, Firepower Kills. So it was great just going across the country, meeting fans, not only of Warbringer, but the channel, other thrash metal fans. So, and it's just really reassuring to see that the genre is alive and well in so many pockets of this great country of ours.
Awesome. That's great. Okay, well, oh man, it's a big topic. How do we tackle this big topic?
That's huge.
Slayer.
Can we stream it?
Where to start? I mean, you know, it's interesting. I went and saw Slayer for the last time recently here in Toronto. It's a beautiful summer evening, and it was kind of surreal. Like, I guess I haven't been at many shows where it's one of my all-time favorite bands, like calling it quits. So maybe I'm lucky. And it was actually pretty emotional and kind of confusing because, of course, Slayer is like super intense, such an extreme band in so many ways. And yet I'm standing there, you know, screaming the lyrics and feeling like kind of sad.
Before you see the light, you must die!
And like being like, fuck. I don't think I really thought about it until I went to the show and I was like, fuck, this is the last time I'm going to see this great band. So there you go. I was like a bit blindsided by the whole experience going, shit, this is kind of fucking shitty. So for you, Ted, you grew up listening to Slayer?
Oh yeah, I remember buying Show No Mercy, Haunting the Chapel around the time it came out.
Yeah.
Incredible, incredible.
Yeah.
You know, they were coming up, then it wasn't until Hell Awaits that things started to get really serious.
Yeah.
That's when I think people started to know these guys are just gonna destroy everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because, you know, Haunting the Chapel and Show No Mercy was a bit, for lack of a better term, tame compared to Hell Awaits.
Yeah.
When Hell Awaits came out, just the album cover alone, the songs, the production, it just sounded so dark.
Yeah.
Then of course, Rain and Blood came out, and that's when, I think from there on, that's when the whole Slayer chant started.
For sure. Take me back, because you grew up in the Bay Area.
Yes.
You know, you were a teenager in the 80s, just
Yep.
like me, and kind of we hit this music right around the same time. What's your memory from the buzz that was happening around Slayer, like with those early records? Like, were people just like, holy fuck, have you heard this?
Yeah,
Do you
the
remember
buzz,
that?
word of mouth. I mean,
Yeah.
I had friends and, you know, people were just talking about it. You know,
Yeah.
I remember being in the neighborhood having friends. They go, dude, there's this new band Slayer that I saw. But I was too young to go to these clubs at the time.
Yeah.
But then you started hearing, and of course then, you know, the place to hang out was the record vault. That's where you get all the vinyls and all the demos, and people were talking about them, and all of a sudden it was just blowing up.
Yeah.
Same thing with Metallica and all these other bands. But Slayer was from LA.
Yeah.
So, you know, first Metallica came up here, up to the Bay Area, then
Yeah.
Slayer followed suit, and the buzz was just growing.
Yeah.
It
That's
was
amazing.
intense. The word of mouth in the Bay Area at that time was huge,
Yeah,
you know.
I can imagine. For you, Chris, like, do you remember the first time you heard Slayer?
I most certainly do.
Yeah?
It was in grade 9, so for me that would be back in 2007. One really popular video game, Guitar Hero 3. The last level of the video game was appropriately named Redeem Your Soul or Sell Your Soul, and it took place in hell. And I remember one of the final tracks on that video game being Raining Blood. And at the time, I was still listening to a lot of classic rock, a lot of AC/DC, Led Zeppelin, Queen. And for me, that was just a game changer for me. As soon as I heard that song, the eerie intro just had me captivated. And I immediately went out to my closest HMV to grab a copy of Rain and Blood, and I believe it was Hell Awaits.
It's interesting to hear your story, I think, compared to, say, Ted's or mine, where we're old enough to actually have been there when these records came out. Like, one of my most distinctive, like, music purchasing moments, actually there's two, and two of them involve Slayer. One, I remember going to my local record store in Victoria, BC, which was called Lyle's Music. That was our record vault, which was the local independent record store. And there was a guy who worked there, Jamie Fulton, bless his soul, who brought in all of the underground music. And I remember word of mouth, you know, you gotta hear this album, this band. I think I had heard them pre-Rain and Blood, but Rain and Blood was the first one that I remember buying and taking home and putting on, and just sort of like, you know, it was black and white before, and then it turned to color. Fast forward a few years, actually, one of the first CDs I ever bought was Decade of Aggression, which was the double live, the double live album. My question for you though is, it's interesting because you came in, you heard a song like Raining Blood, which was made in 1986 in the 2000s, which says a lot, I think, about the quality of the music and the quality of the sound. What did it sound like to you? Did it sound like it was old? Did it sound like it was new? What did it sound like?
To me, it didn't sound as if it was old. It just, I'll never forget the feeling of the hairs on the back of my neck standing up, just hearing that intro and then how fast and pummeling the music was. So for me, it wasn't a matter of, oh, does this sound new or old? It was just, oh my God, I need more of this immediately right now.
Yeah, amazing. Ted, for you, okay, so I've always had a pocket envy for all the people that grew up in the Bay Area in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the rest of us around the world were just going, oh, damn.
Yeah. It was a good time.
Like, you know, life's good, but we didn't grow up in the Bay Area in the 80s, so fuck it. We'll take second best. For you, what do you think Slayer had that the other bands didn't when you think back to those early days when you first heard them?
Wow, I guess it was the four of them, that the chemistry they have together, the lyrics, the tones, just their approach on songwriting, they took it to the next level. I mean, just the Hell Awaits lyrics, you read that, you go, you know, it was scary.
Yeah.
It was scary, you know, and I thought Venom was scary,
Yeah.
but Slayer was. I mean, they elevated. While everyone's, you know, still thrash, just something about the chemistry with four of them, the guitar tones, the drumming, and the lyrics, the cover, and their approach to thrash separated them from everyone.
I've got my Haunting the Chapel vinyl back here, but my vinyl copy of Hell Awaits, if you hold it up to a certain light, it's dented with pencil scratching. Because I used to trace.
Yeah.
I used to trace the album covers when I'm somewhere sort of mid-teens. Some of it, Hell Awaits in particular, it's like a mess. Like you tilt it up to the light, and it's like I think I spent a lot of time trying to, you know, trace all those characters on the front. But you're right. I mean, something's really menacing and evil about that record. Speaking of Hell Awaits, did you go back and listen to the earlier records once you'd heard Raining Blood?
Yeah, so for the duration of my time in high school, I was just fixated on trying to add to my Slayer collection. And by the time I graduated, I had all their records. But for me, I remember going to more towards Hell Awaits, obviously, Rain and Blood, South of Heaven, Seasons in the Abyss. Yeah. That, and by the end of high school was when the Big Four shows were still going on, most notably in Sofia. So for me, just being able to appreciate all of their old records and then seeing them on such a huge platform at that point in their careers was astounding.
Mm-hmm. I guess that's one thing they had that was a little bit different than their contemporaries in the thrash scene. They were just a little bit more Venom than all the rest, right? They had that evil quotient that none of the other bands really had at that time.
No, they were like going into like the satanic realm, you know. Yeah. And it was like even the album covers, like I said, they were like Iron Maiden album. You know, when you pick up an Iron Maiden, you're like, I'm gonna get this. Yeah. Pick up Slayer album, you go, whoa, I gotta pick this up too.
Absolutely.
You know, so they, like I said, they elevated. They went, we're gonna push the envelope as far as we can, and they did it right. Yeah.
You guys toured with Slayer in 2016.
Correct.
I think it was with Anthrax as well. And was that the first time you had toured with them as a musician?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, but I've heard stories. Yeah. I remember Robin Mark told me on the Killers 1 demo they played with Slayer, Rain and Blood at the New York in the Ritz.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. I saw footage from that tour. Amazing. But as they played shows with Slayer, but it's our first time Death Angel touring with Slayer.
What was that like for you as that kid that
it was amazing.
Show No Mercy back in the 80s?
It was amazing just watching them every night.
Yeah.
And you know, when they play songs like, you know, Die by the Sword, it just brought back some memories of being in, you know, my bedroom listening to that. Sure. You know, and just reading the lyrics, and a bunch of great guys. They put on a great show.
Yeah. And speaking of tour, I mean, the last tour they've just done is just like, man, I've never felt more heat coming off a stage
Right?
than that
Holy
Slayer
crap.
show.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it gave me a whole different perspective when they played Hello H and that fire came out. It felt like I was going to hell.
Yeah, I
you know?
It is the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Let's get to some viewer comments. Okay, first up we've got Ian Burf. Here we go. Slayer are absolutely quintessential to extreme metal, as they pushed the boundaries in the 80s and undisputedly released the most important thrash album ever. No need to say which one, I guess. Even though Metallica could be argued as the most influential Big Four band, generally because I assume a lot of people got into metal through Metallica, Slayer are the one that almost every thrash band looks up to. Peter J. Brown, as far as the Big Four goes, Slayer helped bring in extreme metal as a whole. They helped start the black and death metal scenes with Rain and Blood and Hell Awaits. They kickstarted the extreme look with chains on guitars, wearing extreme spike gauntlets, etc. They may not have been as huge as Metallica has become, nor as musically proficient as Megadeth, or as street as Anthrax. Nice little comparison there. But they are Satan's lounge band, for sure.
That's a perfect way to describe
Perfect
it.
example.
There's a good
Perfect,
quote.
perfect.
Thank you, Peter. Micah Grossman says, Metallica had more commercial success and Megadeth's best work is some of the best metal ever written, but Slayer was always the most consistent of the Big Four. That's interesting. They've easily had the most influence on the extreme styles compared to the thrash contemporaries, whether sonically, lyrically, or visually. Scott Robinson says, Slayer is the most important of the Big Four to extreme metal because they offered the most to its evolution. They had huge influence not only in thrash metal, but also death metal, and to a lesser extent, black metal. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting with Slayer. Like, they, I guess all, not just the Big Four, but of course, Death Angel included, and Testament included, and we were talking about violence earlier, and, you know, don't get me started on Forbidden and all of Exodus, and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, different episode. But Slayer was a band that seemed to, in terms of like the way metal has gone, especially in the last like post-internet era, last 15 years or so, you know, we look at The Wall, like really it's the, in my opinion, it's the more extreme sides of metal where we've seen like so much growth and so many great new bands. And you could argue that Slayer is a band that is the one that's really been the most influential. Like they are a common denominator. Would you agree?
I wholeheartly agree. Yeah. Even if you're just taking it down to the brass tacks of someone like Dave Lombardo and the band, he single-handedly weaponized the drums on Angel of Death. You listen to that and it just sounds like a shriek of machine gun fire. No one else was doing that at the time in the genre. So not only that, but as you mentioned earlier, a lot of the aesthetic of how we view extreme metal. So in '86, Metallica were still wearing t-shirts and jeans. Slayer out there with the leather, the spike gauntlets, the inverted crosses and everything. So a lot of what we recognize as extreme was due in part to Slayer. And while Metallica was going out recording 50-minute plus albums like Master of Puppets, Slayer cut it right down, just bare bones, 29 minutes of in-your-face thrash.
Yeah.
And that's the way it should be.
It's interesting. I mean, maybe I'm overanalyzing it, but hey, this is what we do on the show.
Okay.
We overanalyze metal
Absolutely.
to death. Is that, I don't know, Slayer maybe was the one band from that era that they had like a lot of European influences. Like I know Carrie was really into Venom, really into Merciful Fate, really into Judas Priest, really into Iron Maiden. Of course, Metallica and all the other bands of that time were into European bands as well. But it almost feels like Slayer kind of grabbed a bit of Venom and grabbed a bit of Merciful Fate and grabbed a bit of Priest. I mean, famously, I think Slayer played largely Priest and Maiden covers before they actually made their originals. So I don't know, they seem to just borrow from that darker European aesthetic,
Yes.
maybe a little more than the others.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And even just how they come off on stage as well, it's, if you look at any old footage like Clash of the Titans tour, Tom Araya doesn't spend a lot of time with banter in between songs. It's just getting right to the point of delivering the heaviest possible sound.
Yeah.
Because they had a message out there. They were friends with all these other bands. They respected them. While at the same time, there was a friendly rivalry that was being developed at that time.
Yeah.
And Slayer were out there to prove that they were the kings.
Yeah. So Ted, like, it's really hard to talk about music sometimes.
It is.
Because I just want to sit here and talk about, like, I just want to, like, air drum my way through my favorite Lombardo moments and
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it gets kind of silly. But for a guitarist, like, what do you think Hanneman and King did that was so cool or different? Like, what did they have that was different than, say, Tipton and Downing, or, you know, Smith and Murray, or Hammett and Hetfield? Like,
they definitely have their own style of playing. They definitely know how to write some evil riffs and some evil songs. And when they, you know, each of them on their own, Hanneman writing Angel of Death, you know, Carey writing piece by piece. Yeah. It's like the same person writing it, you know, one person, but they complement each other.
When Jeff got injured in early 2011, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what this writing process was going to be like. So immediately I started working on new material a lot more than I usually do. And then in the middle of it, losing Jeff just derailed everything. The one thing I wanted to address, that I had to address, I thought, was, you know, the moody aspect of Slayer, because that generally came from Jeff. And I wanted to make sure I could do it and it was good. And When the Stillness Comes is the first one we did on this recording session. And that proved to me I had it covered. I had that riff, the intro riff, for like 20 years. And I never did anything with it because Jeff always had stuff. And I always knew I had that in my pocket in case I needed it. So I decided to finish it. And, you know, when Tom put the lyrics on, I was, you know, goosebump moment. I was super excited. So I knew that I could at least mimic one of Jeff's big influences on the band.
You know, people have talked about how crazy their solos are, but it fits Slayer. That's their style. They have a style. They go, this is what we do. We're not here to impress anybody. We're here to just write Slayer music, whether you like it or not. You know, and whatever they did as guitar players fit that Slayer sound. Yeah, without a doubt. And I like it. Yeah, and you know, it's they just had this ability, like in the guitar department. We could spend all day just talking about each member and what they brought to the band's sound. But I think, you know, it was something about like their riffs, like you know, just they kind of created something new. Like if you think back to like the time of Hell Awaits or Rain and Blood, like sort of zeroing in on those two records, which, you know, you could argue are kind of their most sort of menacing, like the combination of getting their proficiency and their chops together combined with the songwriting and the whole feel of the band. But man, like maybe we lose appreciation for like how evil that shit was. It's a lot evil than a lot of bands today who are trying to be the most extreme and most Satanist. I mean, they are the kings at it. You know, the lyrics, the way they write lyrics, the wordplay, the read in between the lines, the choices of words is a lot scarier than a lot of what bands, black metal bands, death metal bands are writing today. It's not like it's bad, but they just know how to scare you. For sure.
They're certainly some of the most poetic writers when it comes to talking about serial killers, gangs, violence, the atrocities of religion, politics. No one is able to captivate that gruesome atmosphere the way Slayer were, and it spoke volumes to the genres that they influenced afterwards, such as death metal, like we were talking about earlier. You know, you hear Alex Webster talking a lot about how Slayer was so influential with Cannibal Corpse, especially lyrical content and how it influenced their writing style.
Yeah, absolutely. And even, you know, I'm thinking of even some of the slower songs, like, you know, Seasons in the Abyss or Spill the Blood, you know, to take two examples. Like, they were able to create kind of like almost ballad-esque, you know, anthems that were, you know,
dark,
but
heavy.
But like, was like, you know, the soundtrack to Silence of the Lambs, before Silence of the Lambs was even an idea.
Still feels like you're getting hit in the face with a car battery when you listen to it too. Yeah.
Anyway, let's transition, because part of what we want to do today, just because, you know, it wouldn't be a talk show if we didn't like create some lists.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Alrighty.
Is we want to drill down and try and, you know, at least for us, what are the three most important Slayer albums? Maybe we could identify some of our favorite Slayer songs, which is fun. But let's see what the viewers have to say. about some of the standout Slayer records over the years. First up, we've got Ian Salisbury, who says, Hell Awaits was the first album I ever heard by Slayer back in 1985 and made an enormous impact on me. It sounded unlike anything I'd heard before. But it was Rain and Blood that took them to the next level. It's one of those few genuinely game-changing records. I still maintain that no album since has matched that level of ferocious intensity. Not a second is wasted. It's an absolute masterpiece. I could not agree more. Levy McIntyre, my favorite Slayer album without question is Hell Awaits, arguably their heaviest, most brutal, and most progressive album they ever did. That's an interesting thought. Longer songs, maybe a little bit more diversity. Thrashing mayhem with longer songs. He said that. Raw production. And scary and evil lyrics. As Papa Dunn, I'm now Papa Dunn, has pointed out before, if the production was better, this could have been a death metal album. Tracks like Crypts of Eternity, Praise of Death, and the title track really shows how much Slayer were capable of writing diverse songs. Yeah, I guess I've gone on record saying, like, if you did a remix or remaster of Hell Awaits, that could be something phenomenal.
I wouldn't mind a remaster, but not a remix.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's good the way it is.
Don't mess with the magic.
Remaster it to make maybe a little louder or something up to today's standards of people's mastering.
Good
But
point.
do not mess with the production or the mixing.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
that's what
I
you
gotcha.
know.
It
You know what I
loses
mean?
its magic a
I
bit.
gotcha.
The magic,
Yeah.
that moment in time.
Yeah.
That's captured. You don't want to mess with that.
Because that's what music is too. It's a blueprint of where the music was in that time period.
Yeah, where their headspace was at. You don't,
Absolutely.
You know?
And the opening riff on Necrophiliac. Anyway, I knew we would air guitar.
You can't help it.
What's worse is I'm a bass player and I can't really effectively air guitar. Anyway,
Same.
we move on. Matt Florent. Well, while I usually hate going on with the obvious, it has to be Rain and Blood. It's the single most important album in the development, speed, intensity of metal while delivering lyrics that tackle taboos no one in metal had ever previously done. A perfectly produced album loaded with classics and enduring influence. Evan Moses, Rain and Blood is my personal favorite. Angel of Death and Raining Blood are the quintessential Slayer tracks that have become permanent setlist highlights. This was the album where Slayer found their sound. Rick Rubin's production decision to keep the recording as dry as possible. Also got to give credit to Andy Wallace, who I interviewed for Metal Evolution, who had a lot to do with the sound of that record. No discredit to Rubin, but I think Wallace was the guy that shaped the bass drum sound. Anyway, production designed to keep the recording as dry as possible, as well as the album being a breakneck speed of 28 minutes. It's one of the classic thrash metal albums of the band's discography, as well as the sound of being fully formed for Slayer. Okay, so we're going to move on and talk about some other records, and we talked a lot about Hell Awaits and Rain and Blood already, but speed round, favorite song on Rain and Blood?
Angel of Death.
Favorite song on Rain and Blood?
Postmortem.
Whoa,
Ooh.
yeah. Hell Awaits? Favorite track on Hell Awaits?
Title track.
Title track.
At Dawn They Sleep.
Dawn They Sleep.
Yes. That's another good one.
Man, yeah. I'd have to go title track, or I really like Necrophiliac. I think it was like a blueprint for like if there's a blueprint for Rain and Blood on Hell Awaits, I think it's that song. Kill Again.
That's a good one.
Super heavy, kind of twisted and weird. Like they did, that kind of progress. It is like the closest they ever got to prog in a way. I think messing around with times and transitions a little bit, and oh man, Rain and Blood. I mean, probably Raining Blood. I mean, there's two riffs in that song that are in the top 10 of all
Metal riffs.
Yeah.
I get why people like Angel of Death, Raining Blood.
Yeah.
The first and the last track. I
bookends.
get it. I mean, but there's other gems
Yeah.
in that record. Postmortem, that beginning riff when you just hear that first hi-hat hit.
Oh.
Yeah.
And
Bum,
dude,
bum.
and it takes you on a driving ride, and it's just so heavy. and
Epidemic's
dark.
got a fucking
Yeah.
really good break in it too. Actually, it tends
Yeah.
to get overlooked.
I mean,
Yeah.
the drum intro. You know, it's just I mean, I don't know, Postmortem. I go back and forth. I was loving Angel of Death, Raining Blood, but when Postmortem came out, I decided to check out the other stuff. I was like, dude, this is so intense.
Sidebar, we got to talk about Lombardo's drumming.
Yes.
Where the fuck do we start?
Well, he's
Where do we start?
god.
I don't know.
Pardon?
He's a god at drums behind the
That's it. That's all we need to say. Move on.
I've yet to meet a drummer in thrash that hasn't gloated about, oh yeah, I can do the double bass part in Angel of Death. It's iconic what he's done for the genre of music.
To me, for Lombardo, it's the fills. And I don't think the even a reasonably informed metal listener has a true appreciation for how amazing Dave Lombardo's drum fills are.
They're tasty.
No one does it quite like him.
Yeah. They're
the
tasty.
way he moves between the snare and the toms.
Even
so
his
awesome.
round
Yeah.
just goes like
Flawless.
It's like
Yeah.
And he has a swing to his
Oh, man.
drumming. You know, it's like there's some sort of like push and pull, but it's still very organic.
Super
around the
light on
pocket.
his
Yeah.
feet, super fit. Like I've never heard him drag. Like that guy is a machine. I saw the closest thing I ever saw to someone like literally lose their mind at a concert was when I went to see Fantomas.
Oh yeah.
The Horseshoe Tavern down on Queen Street here in Toronto, with of course Mike Patton, Lombardo, and the whole band.
Yeah.
And Lombardo set his drums up right at the front of the stage, sitting sideways to the stage. So if you were in the front, like, you know, you never ever got that close to Dave Lombardo.
Oh, no.
And there were dudes like camped out in front of Lombardo's kit, and they, you know, Fantomas did all these crazy stops and starts that, you know, really jagged, angular shit. Lombardo was like doing all these rolls and then just stopping on a dime. And there was a guy who was literally probably this far from Dave Lombardo's face, and he screamed at the top of his lungs, like impulsively, "Holy fuck, it's Dave Lombardo!" And the whole place laughed. Like it was like this like guttural thing. People freak out. People freak out with those guys.
I mean, a lot of Jeff Hanneman, rest his soul, and Kerry King, probably the greatest music, riffs, but it was Lombardo that made it.
Yeah, man.
It made it. You would put another drummer in there, I think Slayer wouldn't sound like Slayer today.
And no disrespect to Paul Bostaph.
No,
I mean,
no.
Paul is amazing, such a great guy. He's done such an amazing job.
Oh,
I mean,
totally.
like, you know, there are no bigger shoes to fill in the metal drum world, probably,
Absolutely.
than
Yeah.
Lombardo,
Yeah.
right? Like, of any band.
That's a hard thing to do. It's just almost equivalent to filling in for Cliff.
Yeah, man.
You know?
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Newstead, you know, he did as good a job as anyone was going to do, and
Yeah.
I'm a fan of Newstead. I
Me
think
too as well.
He's a great player and brought a lot of great energy to that band live. But yeah, with Lombardo, that guy, they had a real gem in that band.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Like the combination,
Yeah.
like I talked about earlier, the chemistry of all four of them.
Yeah.
Araya's voice, you know, the dual writing of Kerry and Jeff, and that driving drums of Lombardo made that Slayer.
And the maniacal, smiling presence of Tom Araya.
Yeah.
No metal frontman can get away with smiling like Tom Araya.
He's got a great smile.
He's
He
like
does.
the most evil fucking bastard on the stage, and he's just sitting there smiling at you.
Because the way he projects his screams and
Yeah.
the lyrics, the way he sings, he's smiling like, yeah, I mean it.
Yeah, man.
You know, I mean this.
And it's a bit of like, you're eating out of the palm of my, I've got
yeah.
you.
Yeah. Dude. When I see him, I'm like, yeah, dude. You know, it's like going,
You're in my house
Yeah.
right now.
he
I'm
knows
gonna
how
do
to,
what
he
I
knows how
want.
to
Yeah.
command the
Command an
stage.
audience.
Yeah, he
Okay,
does.
let's move on. We've got John Pennell talking about Seasons in the Abyss. While they started going more mid-tempo in South of Heaven, Seasons feels like a refinement of that style while still throwing in some faster songs. Speaking of song tempos, I also feel that Seasons is a better paced album than its predecessors. Interesting. Overall, this album showed a lot of growth in the band as songwriters, without sacrificing any of the band's ferocity or heaviness. Christopher Moore says about Seasons of the Abyss, I know a lot of people argue over whether Kerry or Jeff is the better writer in Slayer. I think Seasons represents how great these two are together. Carrie's blistering speed combined with Jeff's fantastic ear for melody. We'll go down to South of Heaven. I'm going to throw this out there. I think Seasons in the Abyss is actually might, next to Rain and Blood, might be the Slayer album that's aged the best. And I don't know, I mean, I haven't spent a ton of time listening to it in recent years, but when I do listen to it...
I mean, I haven't spent a ton of time too, so it's a hard one for me.
It's aged well, that record, I feel.
Okay. I'm going to have to go back and revisit that. You know?
War Ensemble.
It absolutely has, and getting back to the slower mid-tempo songs, Slayer went out of their way to prove that, because, you know, after Rain and Blood, they couldn't go faster than that.
Can't, exactly.
So when they brought it down to a slower tempo, you have those really anthemic, thumping songs, and who's to say that hasn't inspired bands such as, you know, Exodus when they released Blacklist in the early 2000s, or a band like Warbringer with Remain Violent. It's refreshing to hear that you can do something other than straight breakneck speed. You can have it sonically be a cinder block being dropped on your head.
I mean, Skeletons of Society, a lot of these mid-tempo songs, I think, have actually aged quite well. And you're right about, like, you know, South of Heaven, which I guess we'll get to, is like, you know, they had to follow up Rain and Blood, and, you know, there was no way they were ever going to make a record that would please everyone. I mean, that was impossible. But interestingly, with Seasons, I think they went more mid-paced, and I think it over time it served them well. Dead Skin Mask, great tune.
That's a good tune.
The title track, Seasons in the Abyss, is fantastic.
A lot more melodic vocals happening on that, a bit easier for the crowd to get into singing as a whole.
Yeah, and a lot more of those sort of chunkier. I mean, you never would have heard them do that on Rain and Blood.
No, and I'm glad they didn't do that. I'm glad they didn't make a Rain and Blood Part 2. They left it, that's Rain and Blood, and that's it. We're going to do South of Heaven was more, you know, mid-temp too. They slowed it down, and I loved it, because if they're going to release Rain and Blood 2, people are going to go, oh, we like Rain and Blood 1, what are you doing? You know, you're going to get crucified for doing the same thing or doing something different. So they did something different.
And yet, arguably, with War Ensemble, they got the closest they would ever get to like an Angel of Death Part 2.
Yeah.
Because that's a fucking intense song.
It is.
They're great at writing about war.
They've played it every night since that record's come out, I think.
Yeah.
It's a classic. Okay, South of Heaven. Leonard Reibstein says, this album delivers a diverse group of songs, the eerie atmosphere of the opener, the crushing breakdown on Ghosts of War, the dissonant wails of Mandatory Suicide, the rocking Judas Priest cover, and the bombastic black metal of Spill the Blood. With this one, Slayer declare, we're not just a one-trick pony, we are a many-headed beast of darkness and death. Old Horntooth, I like that, Old Horntooth, says, South of Heaven. Coming up with South of Heaven as a follow-up to Rain and Blood was a stroke of genius. To slow things down but retain the heaviness gave the album a sinister atmosphere only hinted at on Rain and Blood. There you go, South of Heaven. I retain that one of the most unsung songs in the history of Slayer is Ghosts of War, which is the opening track on side 2 of that record. Don't know if you guys can remember that song very well. It has all the hallmarks of it. If someone needed a Slayer tune just to reference Slayer in one song, that would be one of my go-tos. What's your thoughts on South of Heaven as an album?
As an album, I love it. Classic album. As we mentioned earlier, just having a bit more of those slower songs, letting them breathe a bit more, and you get a lot more refined songwriting and musicianship on that album as well, which I'm sure resonates with other colleagues in the genre as well, because I'm sure with you guys, you look towards what your colleagues are doing in the genre, and you want to add towards that, and you know, it all amalgamates into it bringing up the genre as a whole.
Yeah, that album is, you know, they slowed it down, but it was great because they already have enough fast songs.
Yeah.
They do. And with this one, it's still Slayer. And you know, nowadays,
Suicide, right?
Yeah.
One of the
nowadays,
greats.
if a band puts out a brutal album and the next album is a bit slow, you get crucified. They did it right.
Yeah.
You know, they put it out and people were still into it. You get a few of those, like it's not Rain and Blood, but the majority loved it. I mean, I saw them on South of Heaven with Judas Priest.
Oh yeah.
Man.
And I was like, and I think they opened up with South of Heaven. I was like, and you saw the whole arena go crazy, and it goes to show, yeah, they did it right. Like coming from Rain and Blood, you know.
Yeah.
And South of Heaven, it, like you said, more digestible.
Yeah.
it sounded good in the arena.
Yeah.
Played some songs. It was like, okay, then when they touched on Rain and Blood, it made it more enjoyable.
Yeah, and yet they, not unlike War Ensemble, Silent Scream is an absolutely lethal tune, and he just, you know, Lombardo again just said, okay, I did it on Angel of Death, I'm going to do it on Silent Scream, right? That's a fast tune, and no one, we forget, I mean, that's 88. No one was playing kick drums like that.
Lars was still learning to play the drums, right?
That's right. I mean, we hadn't had like, I mean, I guess we'd had like a Gene Hoglan, for example, with Dark Angel coming up. Like, we're talking about the next generation of metal drummers who were super fast. We were just on the front end of that. Lombardo was kind of out there on his own for a while.
I think Charlie Benante would be right there.
I stand corrected. You're
yeah,
right.
Charlie Benante, even he was doing some crazy stuff.
Respect, Charlie.
On the
of course.
SOD record.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
You're
but
right.
it was like, it was more of a side, it was buried.
Yeah.
It wasn't, you know, like known like Anthrax and Slayer.
Yeah.
Charlie was doing some stuff, so I think he sits right there with Lombardo.
You're right. And actually, you mentioned the sound. I mean, South of Heaven, the production, the bass drums are super loud on that record. It's a different sounding record. Maybe a little big for some of those tracks. I mean, especially, I mean, Rain and Blood was such like a lean record. Like, there's not a lot of in metal terms, not a ton of overdrive on those guitars.
No.
You know, super lean sounding record. South of Heaven had a bit more of that big
roundness, like some roundness.
Like those were
Dun, dun, dun.
bigger sounding songs, right? So much air guitar. We've not air guitared so
We're
much.
trying our best.
I
know?
can't resist. I can't resist. Okay, let's get on with it. Yusuf Terry says about Divine Intervention. It's a totally underrated album in their catalog. It was the first Slayer album I got, so it's special to me. It's their most death metal sounding album as well because of the more technical riffs and changes, and Paul Bostaph absolutely destroys on the drums, much to the disagreement of the band. I think the production slays. Unfortunately, I fall into that very stereotypical category of after Seasons in the Abyss, I kind of stopped listening to Slayer for a moment.
You know, I'm going to have to be with you on that.
Yeah.
But with Divine Intervention, I mean, I got to go back and revisit it. I remember really liking it because I went and supported Paul.
Yeah.
And it's like coming from Forbidden.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I remember seeing one of Paul's first shows with Slayer, and it was awesome.
Amazing.
Yeah, but you know, but after Seasons, I kind of lost interest. I got into Divine. You know, I thought it was a great record at the time. I have to listen back to it again.
Yeah.
But Paul Bostaph's first record with him, I believe.
Yeah, that's right.
And you know, had to show the support to be a Bay Area dude.
Huge. I mean, I think, I mean, that was
Huge shoes to fill.
That was a tough time. I remember that. I mean, I remember Lombardo leaving Slayer, and it was just like, what the fuck?
Catastrophic even, yeah.
Yeah. Are you familiar with that record? Divine Intervention?
Divine Intervention, not so much. I'm on the same page as you guys. I'm a lot more into a lot of the older school sounding, but you know what? I think Bostaph doesn't get enough credit on that record just because he had such a big role to fill in that band. I don't think the fans truly gave him the opportunity to present himself, but it's still great to see him kicking it with a band still and doing them justice, especially on the road right now.
Exactly.
Of course.
Exactly. I mean, if it was like they knew how to pick their players.
Yeah.
I mean, Bostaff, Gary Holt. You know,
Yeah.
The gentleman from Whiplash filled in for Dave Lombardo at one point. What was his name?
Scaglione.
Yes.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In
that was in
92.
early.
Yeah.
That's
Early.
right.
Yeah.
Early
So
on.
they picked their players right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, yeah. Paul doesn't get enough credit. He's great. I get the whole like Lombardo. They're two different styles, and they both work well.
Yeah.
It's just personal preference, really.
Oh, I think Slayer did really well. I mean, Bostaph and Holt, I mean, man, I mean, come on. You know, you can't do much better than that.
Yeah.
If there's
really.
anyone going to be filling in for Hanneman, no one better than Gary
I'm a
Holt.
huge Gary Holt fan.
Me
I think
too.
that guy is arguably like the most metal guy that's ever walked the planet. The energy that he exudes on stage is just phenomenal. What do you think you bring to this band?
That's a good question. You know, I try to bring energy and I try to keep everybody smiling. I think I'm a good bridge between all the guys and keep everybody happy, because I'm always in a good mood. It's rare for these guys to ever see me pissed off about anything, you know, because I'm living the dream. I'm playing guitar. I have fire on stage, all right? You know, it's like when I was a kid, at 17, I started playing guitar. You know, we dreamed about blowing everything up, setting fire to everything on stage, and I actually get to do it. So I'm super happy. I'm happy that Exodus is doing so well. And I think when you're an eternal optimist, like I tend to be, even though there's so much to be, you know, pessimistic about in this world, you know, I just want to keep everybody smiling.
He was there from the get-go.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he precedes
Yes.
many of the others.
Yes,
right?
he was there. So,
Yeah.
you know, I'm so happy for him.
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
great.
And unfortunately, Slayer's coming to an end, but I get, you know, it's their call, but the good side to that is Gary's going back to Exodus.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
something good comes out of something bad.
Yeah.
As much as, you know, it is sad to see Slayer coming to an end, man, I'm waiting on a new Exodus record too at the same time. I
Yeah,
love Exodus.
yeah.
And Gary's just such an awesome member of the band. He fits in so flawlessly. And not only has Gary given us a final Slayer record, he's also given us that timeless meme of the Kardashian wearing a Slayer t-shirt, and then underneath the panel, it's Gary wearing a Kill the Kardashians t-shirt. He just fits the attitude of the band so well.
He does.
Yeah. And, you know, Lombardo's busy doing
Yes.
a million things. He always has been. God bless him. And, you know, who knows what Araya and King might have up their sleeves, right?
Yeah.
I can't see Kerry King disappearing
He just
I
signed
can't
from
see it
music.
too, you know?
I have a hard time seeing
Yeah,
that.
he just signed an endorsement with Dean Guitars, correct?
Yeah.
So I'm sure there are some new musical ventures for him in the horizon. Maybe a bit more on the production side, wanting to work with some younger bands in the genre, or maybe just doing a solo record with other guitarists within the music scene as well. And I think I speak for a lot of metalheads out there when they would be stoked to hear some sort of collaboration album with Kerry.
Or
Kerry and
anybody.
friends. Yeah, exactly.
I don't think Kerry's done.
No.
I think he still has a lot in him. He
Tom
has.
might be done, based on what we know, at least what I know
Yeah.
from the collective,
Yeah.
you know, consciousness of the metal world.
Yeah.
Tom seems to be a guy that probably wants to chill out for a while.
I
I think
believe
so too.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Kerry has a lot to say still.
Of
Yeah.
course.
So I don't think he's done, but I'm looking forward to what is going to happen after.
Yeah, Kerry
You know?
was there basically managed the band
Yeah.
before they had management. Like, he's been the engine, I think,
Yeah.
from the very, very beginning.
He's been the one to keep it together.
Yeah. Okay, before we wrap, here's the tough part. Speed round. Top Slayer record of all time. If you were forced to listen to one and only one for the rest of your living years, what would it be?
Ted,
Rain and Blood.
Rain and Blood.
Shit.
Yeah.
It's a three-peat. What else are we going to say? Okay, top 3 Slayer songs across the entire catalog. We can take some time with this. If you had to pick 3, let me get this going. I would pick Raining Blood. I would pick Ghosts of War as an outside pick. Oh, and a third, what would it be? It would have to be, I don't know. Shit. Maybe something like Seasons in the Abyss, just to mix it up. Like, cause if I want the three shades of Slayer, Raining Blood, Ghosts of War, Seasons in the Abyss. Ted, you got any?
South of Heaven would be one
Nice.
because it's really. I saw him on that tour.
Yeah.
And that song is, the title alone sounds so killer.
Yeah.
South of Heaven. And the song itself is great.
And it's long, so
Yeah.
you get a lot of mileage on
Yeah.
that desert island.
Postmortem. I
Yeah.
have to go with Postmortem from Rain and Blood, and I'm going to go back to Hell Awaits and At Dawn They Sleep.
Nice. Nice.
I'm a big fan of lyrical content surrounding war and the imagery of nuclear battles. So I've got to say Chemical Warfare, War Ensemble,
Wow.
and it's a toss-up between South of Heaven and Dead Skin Mask, but I think it's going to go to South of Heaven.
There you go. A lot of love for South of
Chemical
Heaven.
Warfare, I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Man.
that's their old school track that they kept in the live show for a long time.
And
right?
to me, that song especially, it reminds me a lot of what would in the future lay the groundwork for a lot of the German thrash metal bands as well.
Sure. No one played Black Magic.
You know
Right?
what? I'll tell you a funny story. Heavy MTL where we met.
Yeah.
Slayer played, I think.
Yeah.
One. And Gary was playing, and they were sound checking. I go, let me see Gary's guitar, and their drum tech was behind there, and I played Tormentor.
Nice.
And they were freaking like, dude, you get it. I go, I just wanted to play something different. Like, I'm not gonna play an Angel of Death riff. It's played every night. Like, I
man,
caught people off guard. They go, dude.
Remember the first time I heard Black Magic? This is going like back to the beginning of the episode again, but the first time I heard Black Magic, I was like, shit, super evil.
It is. Very evil.
Let's end on super evil. Where else do we go? I mean, we could sit here all day, all week, all month, all year talking about Slayer, but there you go. Nice to dig into the legacy and the, emotional and personal impact that Slayer has had on our lives as metalheads over many, many decades. Ted, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you,
for your
Sam.
time, man.
Thank you.
See each other again soon. Sir,
Sam,
for your time.
thank you for having me.
All right.
Ted.
There we go. That's
All right,
officially the
buddy.
first cross shake
Yeah.
in the history of Lock Horns
Crossover
Redux.
episode
There you
works
go.
out
Thanks for watching. We'll see you for the next Love In on Lock Horns Redux. See you next time.